Hey everyone, this is Jordan from Madtown. Welcome back to Drawing the Facts, and today we have a very special episode in store for you. As you all know, the day of love has come. That's right, it is finally Valentine's Day. And it's also National Ferris Wheel Day. Huh. Ah yes, I bet all you lovebirds are enjoying all that lovey-dovey, smoochy-woochy, hullabaloo and whatnot. That's why in today's video, I wanted to draw a very famous couple. You can say that this romance is dangerously sweet. This killer couple is none other than Bonnie and Clyde. But instead of drawing them in their original 1920s setting, I wanted to kind of push them a little bit further, way forward in time. In this video, I'm going to draw them in the setting of a more sci-fi futuristic world. So, snuggle with your partner, light up that candle, and grab your shotgun. This is Drawing the Facts. Bonnie and Clyde, year 3000. Alright, so before I talk about our very infamous lovebirds, how about I start off with a little bit of history on Valentine's Day itself. Now, the history of Valentine's is a very interesting one. It hasn't really started off as a very sweet and loving and heartfelt, kind of thing that we all recognize now. The beginning of Valentine's was actually kind of messed up. Really messed up. Back in ancient Roman times, between February 13th to the 15th, Romans celebrated the feast called Lupercalia. Lupercalia was a fertility festival dedicated to Faunus, the Roman god of agriculture. In this festival, the men sacrificed goats and dogs, and instead of hitting on women, they actually hit women by whipping them with the hides of the animals they have just slain. Told you it was going to be messed up. There was even a matchmaking lottery, in which case young men would draw names of women from a jar, and whichever names they'd chosen, the women would pretty much be theirs for the duration of the festival, possibly even longer. In 3rd century AD, a couple of saints by the name of Valentine were captured and then executed by Emperor Claudius II on February 14th. History states that Emperor Claudius II outlawed marriage for young men because he wanted them to be molded into soldiers. St. Valentine's, however, wasn't down with this and actually performed marriages in secrecy. One legend states that Valentine fell in love with a young woman, and before his death, he wrote in a letter to her, which states, "From your Valentine," which is a quote that's still used today. After their deaths, the saints were held as martyrs and were honored by the Catholic Church, in which they celebrated the 14th as St. Valentine's Day. Later in the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I combined St. Valentine's Day with Lupercalia to expel the pagan ritual. During the Middle Ages, St. Valentine's Day was even more popularized with the help of William Shakespeare, who romanticized it in his works. This gained popularity throughout Britain and the rest of Europe. During the 18th century, people would exchange handwritten notes as a sign of affection, which then later on led to factory-made cars in the 19th century. In 1913, Hallmark cards were created in Kansas City, Missouri. A sweet lady by the name of Esther A. Hollins sold the first mass-produced Valentines in America during the 1840s. It's pretty crazy how he went from sacrificing goats to selling greeting cards. Alright, it looks like everything's going pretty good. So now I kind of want to talk a little bit as to why I chose Bonnie and Clyde. Of all the couples I could have chosen, I could have done Romeo and Juliet or Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask, something like that. But, as the more I thought about it, I mean, personally, it's just that I feel like I wanted a little bit of that kick, a little bit of that spark. And the first thing that popped in my mind is, well, Bonnie and Clyde. They're just such a very infamous couple who just, went through all these, robberies and crime sprees. And yet there's just something kind of, I don't know, something kind of sweet. And also something very, very, energetic of what they do, or at least what they did before, which became such a famous story that's been told time and time again, in different films and whatnot, which I'm gonna go over. But yeah, it's just kind of fun just telling a story about these two couples that just are just running from the law, and just something crazy yet kind of cute. Alright, back to the facts. Now that I've given you a little history on Valentine's Day itself, it's time to delve into the couple themselves, Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born on October 1st, 1910 in Rowena, Texas. Clyde Barrow was born on March 24th, 1909 in Tellico, Texas. Bonnie was 19 years old when he first met Clyde. Since the age of 16, Bonnie has been married, in which case her husband has been serving time for committing murder. After meeting each other, Clyde was in prison for robbery. But when Bonnie found out, she decided to visit him day after day. What better way to spend Valentine's Day than having a date behind bars? Clyde really is a lucky guy to meet Bonnie, because she was able to smuggle a gun into prison to help him escape. However, though, this didn't really help too well, because in Ohio he was sent back to jail. After Clyde got parole in 1932, they made it official. Bonnie and Clyde became a thing, and began a life of crime together. Blythe was born. Or Kalani was born. I don't know, I'm bad with shipping names. Bonnie and Clyde's crime spree lasted for 21 months. After they stole a car and committed a couple of robberies, Bonnie was then caught by the police and sent to jail for 2 months. However, she was released in mid-1932 and joined back with Clyde. The duo also teamed up with Clyde's old childhood friends, including Raymond Hamilton, W.D. Jones, Henry Methvin, and Clyde's brother Buck, and his wife Blanche. These small-town robbers became a sensation all over the newspaper as they conquered Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, New Mexico, and Louisiana. Bonnie and Clyde escaped the men in blue a couple occasions, but Buck Burrow was killed in the second raid, and Blanche was arrested. In January 1934, they actually attacked the East Dam prison farm in Texas to help Hamilton escape from jail, shooting several guards with machine guns and killing one of them. Yep, Bonnie and Clyde engaged in a lot of several shootouts with the police. On April 1st, 1934, Bonnie and Clyde murdered 2 police officers in Grapevine, Texas, and 5 days later they killed a police constable in Miami, Oklahoma, and kidnapped the police chief. Unfortunately, their luck was about to come to an end. A Texas police officer by the name of Captain Frank Hammer was hired as a special investigator to track down the two. Hammer and his police force was able to catch up with the two, and on May 23rd, 1934, on a highway in Bentonville Parish, Louisiana, Bonnie and Clyde were shot down. During their time doing crime, Bonnie and Clyde were labeled as being really cold-blooded criminals, but to the public, they were seen as more as a Robin Hood type. Their crime spree also occurred during the Great Depression, which also hit pretty hard in Oklahoma. That's why robbers like Bonnie and Clyde became very famous, as they struck back against the banks, which were seen to the people as being very oppressive to the people, especially during that time. And of course, Bonnie and Clyde's story will be told in the big pictures. The first movie to come out based on their story is called The Bonnie Parker Story, which premiered in 1958, starring Dorothy Provine as Bonnie Parker. The duo's first major film came out in 1967 September, called Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn. This film starred Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway as the title characters. The cast also included Michael J. Pollard, Gene Hackman, and Estelle Parsons. This movie became so popular that director Robert Zemeckis claimed this to be his all-time favorite film in the AFI poll. Other than the Bonnie and Clyde 1967 film and the Bonnie Parker Story 1958 film, there's been other alterations of Bonnie and Clyde, including Bonnie and Clyde: The True Story, released in 1992, Bonnie and Clyde versus Dracula in 2008, and there was even a Bonnie and Clyde TV miniseries which was released in 2013. Bonnie and Clyde's tale is so popular that it even has a Broadway musical, which opened in December 1st, 2011. This Broadway show starred Jeremy Jordan and Laura Osnes as the title characters. Okay, it looks like I'm almost finished. So, now that we talked about Bonnie and Clyde, now it's time to talk about as to the whole twist of this, of Bonnie and Clyde be set in the future. Well, the reason why I want to have it set in this kind of era, dystopian future, is really kind of just I guess just my own like imagination. I'm just like, of having these kind of like this kick butt couple, doing all this stuff, but just have them, in a world where there's like flying cars and all this like sci-fi weapons and technology. Not to get all fanficky and whatnot, but I always would just imagine if there was a story of Bonnie and Clyde, the next Bonnie and Clyde story, have it set it like in the distant future, where just like anything happen, anything is possible, and I really am happy that I went with this route, because I could have just just done it in a more old-fashioned way. Or I mean old-fashioned, just the original setting in the 1920s. But I just wanted to add like a mix of that, and combine it with like I said, with the whole dystopian future, which of course I'm going to explain next. But yeah, that's what really just inspired me. It's just just letting my imagination run wild as to how they will look, and how this whole setting will look. Alright, let's jump back into the facts. So of course, if you've seen my drawing, I decided not to have it all colored in. I wanted to do more of a black and white kind of a style to it, but with a hint of red. I was inspired by oil painting online called the Red Umbrella. You've probably seen it before. Everything is pretty much in black and white, but with a little bit of hints of red in it. I was also inspired by a short animated film produced by Disney called Paperman, which was released in November 2nd, 2012, and directed by John Cars. Since 1969, Paperman is the first animated short created by Disney Studios to win an Academy Award. For the stars of the drawing, I was trying to debate on what I wanted to do with them. Most specifically, how I want them to look. Originally, I was going to have them just go with their more like human-like features. But then I was thinking, you know what? It's the future. It's sci-fi. Go wild with it. So I decided to make them a interracial couple, or an interspecies couple. For Bonnie Parker, I decided to make her into a humanoid alien. I gave her some alien markings, as well as kind of gave her like these flower-like ears, resembling into a rose. The rose actually plays a big part in Greek mythology, as it originated from Adonis, the deity of plants and rebirth. Roses are, of course, commonly associated with love and romance and purity. Roses can also mean secrecy and confidentiality. In fact, Romans would hang roses from ceilings, and it was understood that anything said under the influence of wine was to remain confidential. I know this is also kind of a typical thing, but I decided to give her some antennas as well, similar to like a butterfly's. A butterfly's antenna can be used to smell and to detect a mate. It is also used as light receptors. It can help them navigate through migration, and it has a special organ called the Johnston's organ that draws information from the antenna to help keep the butterflies balanced. Now, as for my man Clyde Barrow, I decided to make him into a cyborg. Cyborgs, they are humans with machine components. One of the cool things about cyborgs too is that they actually do exist in real life, and not just in fiction. An artist by the name of Neil Harbison was born with achromatopsia, or also known as extreme color blindness, which meant that he could only see in black and white. However, after being equipped with a specialized electronic eye, or also known as an eyeborg, it renders perceived colors as sounds on the musical scale. In other words, his device allows him to actually hear colors. Another example is from a man named Nigel Eklund. After losing part of his arm during an accident at work, Nigel had received an incredible advanced robotic prosthetic arm, which resembles very closely to the Terminator. Eklund is able to control his arms through muscle movements in his remaining forearm. He can move each of his 5 fingers to grip delicate objects or even pour a liquid into glass. He's even equipped with one alarming grip called the trigger grip. Crazy. In my drawing, I wanted to give Clyde a special kind of jetpack to, try to get him and Bonnie out of sticky situations. The jetpack was also something I was originally going to give for Deku from the first episode, the first video that I made from Quirkless Deku, which you should check out. So for jetpacks, they first took off in 1961, but they were very experimental during the time. But from 1964 to 2012, Bill Suter became the first jetpack pilot. The jetpack, or in this case the rocket pack, which was created by Wendell Moore. On October 1961, President Kennedy wanted to see a demonstration and was able to witness the first jetpack at the Pentagon, performed by Bill himself. His jetpack and suit is now settled in the Smithsonian Museum. The rocket belt was created by an inventor named Juan Manuel Lozano, who was also the founder of Tecnología Aeroespacial Mexicana, also known as TAM. Because this is the future, instead of having them run off with some money or just cash, I decided to have them run off with some credit cards. Very similar to credits that have been used for the animated show Batman Beyond and the Zeta Project, as well as the Lobo web series. I didn't put that much into the background, but I wanted to be very similar to something you see like in Blade Runner. Blade Runner the film came out in 1982, June 25th, starring Harrison Ford and directed by Ridley Scott. I wonder what it'd be like if this year's 2019 was similar to Blade Runner 2019. You know what? I think it's best to leave that as a mystery. Blade Runner also has a sequel called Blade Runner 2049, which came out on October 6, 2017, which stars Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling. But I would say one of the biggest influences in terms of the background, and maybe just the whole drawing as a whole, comes from the film Alphaville, a sci-fi mystery film which came out on May 5th, 1965, directed by Jean-Luc Godard, starring Eddie Constantine and Anna Karina. And of course, you can have a good old Bonnie and Clyde drawing without having a little bit of a pursuit. The police officers that are chasing after them are flying on these saucer ships. One of the most cited incidents that occurred of a flying saucer occurred in June 24th, 1947, in which an amateur pilot, Kenneth Arnold, was flying his little plane, Call Air A2, over Mineral, Washington. During his flight, he witnessed a bright light just flash before his eyes. At first he assumed it came from another plane, until another flash came again, only this time it was 9 flashes in rapid succession. Arnold wasn't sure of what he just saw. Only thing he knew was that it was just a flying object. However, on June 25th, Arnold did reveal to the reporters that the flying objects flew almost like if a saucer was being skipped across the water. To add a little bit more action, I have the saucers kind of shooting at them, but of course we have Bonnie, equipped with her own laser gun. One of the first examples of a ray gun was actually called the Heat Ray, which was used in H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, which was published in 1898. During the 1930s, comic book and pulp fiction novel hero Buck Rogers used a weapon called the Disintegrator Ray, which became a very popular toy during the 1930s. It looks like the cops are on their tail, but you know what? I think they'll get out just fine. Well, there you have it, folks. Here is a drawing of the lovebirds themselves, Bonnie and Clyde, year 3000. I hope you really enjoyed this video and you learned a lot today. If you already know these facts from the start, but still enjoyed what you just saw, well, thank you. I'll see you again for next video, and until then, stay beautiful, and happy Valentine's Day. Hey everyone, this is Jordan from Madtown Studios. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be putting up new content each month. Down below in the comments, if you have any questions for me or if you have any recommendations of what I should draw, please let me know. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more updates from Madtown Studios, tap that subscribe button down below. Well, see you next time. Peace.